I'm Michelle Meow, a member of the Board of Governors and also host and producer of the Michelle Meow Show here at the club. Our motto is your A through Z, covering the LGBT, LMNOP, and everyone in between. Thanks so much for being here tonight. We're so excited for our speaker, who has not been shy, by the way, in telling her story. While pitching wealthy investors, she slept on the floor of the San Francisco International Airport for other reasons. Tonight, she's here to talk about her new book and also owning a piece of Janet Jackson. Not many of us can say that. And also, you know, she might be also here to hand out your first million. Just kidding, Arlen. Just kidding. No, but we're here to talk about her latest book, Your First Million. Let's welcome Arlen Hamilton to the stage.
Hello.
Did you get nervous there?
Oh, you know, I was going to run out the back if people were going to expect $1 million from me. I was good. I was ready. I had my running shoes on.
Hey, but seriously, though, I got my copy and I was like holding it like, oh, this could very well be the road, the path, you know, for me, for us, for many of us who are thinking in this way. Before we talk about the book, though, and the $1 million that we're going to end up with by the end of the hour, let's talk about you. So I mentioned, right, as you have in many interviews and even in the book, the road that, you know, it took for you to be here today. But I would love to ask a coming out story. It's kind of traditional for the Michelle Meow Show program.
Copy that. Just in general, coming out story?
Any coming out story.
Okay, I can give you one. One. First of all, I want to just thank everybody for being here. I appreciate it. I'm excited for this. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for being here. I know it takes a lot, y'all. I know it takes a lot to just to show up, so I appreciate it. Coming out story. So my mother's over there. Wave your hand, Mrs. Sims. Woo! Fabulous, fabulous. So I'm 43. At 16, I want to say. At 16, I had an online, you know, a girlfriend that I met online, which would become a theme, by the way. And I was 16, and I kind of was like figuring stuff out, and we were typing. It was very innocent. It was just like, oh no, I like you. And my mom walked into my bedroom, and I covered the screen with my arms. And we have a very, even back then, like a sort of an adult kind of banter. And she said, why are you covering your screen? And I said, oh, I don't want you to see that I'm pregnant. You know, just silly stuff. And she said, what I know about you, you're not getting pregnant anytime soon. And I said, and I just froze because, and then she started looking around my room with drama, you know, dramatically, looking around at the walls and looking around. And I said, what are you looking for? And she said, your Ellen DeGeneres poster.
Oh.
And at this point, not one thought in my mind up until this point thought that she knew or had any inclination, because I barely knew, right? And at the same time, you know, my mom at the time was religious, and it was considered a sin to be gay. So it was kind of confounding, but it was also like, I thought, you know, in my 16-year-old brain, I thought, oh, I'm going to be kicked out later today. I got to get ready to be kicked out of my home. And so I was like panicking. And then later that day, she came back from work. We talked about it. And she said, I said, are you mad at me? Are you what? She said, I was just trying to get you to say it. You know, I'm just trying to get you to say it. And from that moment on, it's been, you know, nothing but support. I mean, and there's so many pieces to that where that wouldn't necessarily be the case. First of all, it was years and years ago. I don't know how many years, but it was years ago, decades. And second of all, it's your child is 16, your firstborn, and you know, you see that. And then I was very proud. I think it was like 22 or 23. It wasn't like she was like, you know, going to the gay bar with me right away, right? It wasn't like that, but because there was still some learning curve. And I think at 22 or 23, she calls me. I'm living in California at the time. And I had started selling I'd Go Gay for Angelina shirts. And you could put your own name at the end of it. Like you could say I'd Go Gay for Customized. And again, this is like early e-commerce. And she calls me and I tell her I'm doing that because I want to warn her so that she doesn't see it somewhere else. Because she's still like, you know, you want to be respectful. So I told her, and she goes, what does that mean? I'd go gay for. And I explained a little bit what that meant. Oh, you're straight, but there's someone that you think is, you know, cute, and you go gay for. She goes, and she paused, and I thought, oh, here we go. Now she's going to realize that I'm gay again, and it's going to really hit her. She goes, make one for me that says I'd go gay for Oprah. So I was like, you're cool. And then, you know, I've had a 2 or 3 very serious relationships, and she ends up, you know, liking them more than me. And, you know, so it's been really great. Yeah.
Moms.
Yeah.
They're the best.
They are.
And they kind of always know.
They do.
Things.
Yeah.
Many things.
They do.
So, you know, going back to selling T-shirts and selling stuff and ideas, I mean, this entrepreneurial spirit, it's always been in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slinging shirts.
From slinging shirts to, well, you talk about...
Started a magazine. I started a
magazine.
Music magazine.
Yeah.
And a magazine for women, for chicks who dig chicks was the next iteration of it.
Chicks.
Yeah, we had Margaret Cho on it. It was so great. Like, we had Margaret Cho, we had Missy Higgins right after she came out, who's like the Sarah McLachlan of Australia at the time. She was so popular. And we had, you know, Tegan and Sarah, a few other people, but it kind of went under before I was able to really expand it and get more diverse with it. But Margaret Cho, during the photo shoot, let's just say she did something that was suggestive in the photo shoot, and that ended up being the cover. And it was the whole thing, because we were in Hot Topics. Does anybody remember Hot Topics? So they kind of got rid of their magazine section, but they liked the magazine so much they took it, you know, added it. So we were in Hot Topics. We had like Fall Out Boy and My Chemical Romance and All American Rejects on the cover, so it worked. And then we changed it to a gay magazine. It was really awesome. And they saw this cover of Margaret doing this thing, whatever she was doing, and they had to turn it. You know, they kept it, but they had to turn it across. And I thought that was, when I look back on that, I'm like, that's so hardcore. You know, that's like punk rock. You know, it's like, it's kind of cool. And it was just her idea to do it.
Well, you had amazing ideas, and you know, part of this book is really talking about helping others and supporting others till this, you know, to this day, right? We're talking over 200 startups, and startups from Black LGBTQIA plus women, you know, owned startups, over $30 million invested. So I'm talking about backstage capital, right? So sleeping on the floor of the San Francisco International Airport while pitching investors. I mean, it's got to be terrifying.
I don't know if terrifying was the word. It didn't feel, it wasn't terrifying. I think roller coasters are terrifying. And I was going to say Elon Musk. I find his power to be terrifying. But it was more, I want to say devastating. It was more like soul crushing, but it wasn't, I always had in my mind, I guess I call it like a purposeful delusion. I always had in my mind that it was just very temporary, you know, so, but it was like, okay, how long is temporary? How long do I have to do this? And as each day went on, and I was in my mid-30s at that point, I just thought, is this really everything? I don't know if it gets even worse than this, can I even stand that? Can I even like bounce back from that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The way that it's so hard sometimes to talk about things as like the first these days, because how old is this country, and you know how we've always been here, kind of a thing. But it is what it is, and so to be that, to be you, to have this idea, and to know that we need this, we need, you know, a company like Backstage Capital that believes in us, right, to take on that role, to take on that responsibility. Maybe that was sometimes scary.
You want it to be? I can turn it.
I don't know. Because, I mean, you mentioned it in the book, right? Money sometimes, or in the beginning, if you don't have it, it can be scary.
Yeah, it was daunting, for sure. But I just, it's like this risk tolerance that I have. It's also a little bit of, it's a confidence. And it's when is everybody else going to get it together and we can just do this type of thing. So again, it was, the scary part wasn't the part about like, how do I start a fund that invests in amazing people? That wasn't scary because it's just a matter of time. And I didn't know how much time, but I was willing to just keep going. The scarier part was the personal side, which was, I don't have any money and my family doesn't have any money, and I don't know exactly how we're supposed to figure this all out. And I'm doing this other thing that's so big. And nobody in that industry who I'm talking to could relate to this at all. And I wasn't sharing it with people because it wasn't their business and it wasn't necessary for our conversation. So that part was, I still don't know if I can get myself to say scary, but it was daunting.
You mentioned in the book, and you've talked about it, obviously, in 2017 at least, right? Was it less than 0.2% of VC money that actually went to people of color?
Well, it's less than 10% that go to all women, all people of color, and all LGBTQ+. It's less than 0.2% that goes to Black women. And it gets smaller every year, which is insanity. And usually what it is one or two Black women who are able to raise a large amount, and then the rest is just doesn't even show up on the meter.
I remember in the book you talked about when you brought up the statistic.
Yeah.
I mean, some folks were like, kind of like, yeah, I guess it is. That's what it is. That's reality. What is it like now?
The conversation is totally different today. We've for terrible reasons, but we're talking about it more. I will say that I had a podcast conversation like 6 months ago with a white man. Man is a heavy word, but he was a boy, but he, his 20s, he was a child. And
is there a name?
It's a stupid name too.
Okay.
Like I really don't like. I'm really open-minded, but he also had one of those like Pemberton, one of those kind of names. Like you just like. And it started off with, and I didn't realize it until afterwards. But as soon as we got on, he's an investor. He says he's an investor, and my bookshelf has all kinds of stuff on it. It's like cool books, and it says stuff. And I didn't realize this is what he was doing, but he was like in an uproar about like having his tech person just say, we need a different background. We need to get her on Zoom so we can kind of blur the background. And I thought it was for technical reasons, but after our conversation, I realized he did not want to have girls just want to have funds, or Black girls will save the world, or those types of things in front of him. And so we started having a conversation, and I mean, a minute into it, he truly could be my son. He's probably 18 years younger than I am. About a minute into it, he said, I said that statistic. I said less than 10% goes to blah, blah. And he says, is that because, well, first of all, where are these statistics? I need you to cite them. So I didn't have them readily available to, put online. But I was like, okay. And then he said, is it because they're not being allowed in rooms, or is it because they're not trying hard enough?
Hey.
Is it because they're not, or they're not in those meetings, therefore the numbers are lower? Then he goes on to tell me that in his experience with his wife, and heaven bless her, I wanted to talk to her so bad and say, just blink twice, girl, I got you. Come over here. He said in his experience, because his wife enjoys, in his words, homemaking. Who enjoys homemaking? Anyway, we're getting so mad about Pemberton. Because she enjoys homemaking and raising their child, she is not going out to raise money like he is. So he's saying that that's happening across the board. Women are just not going out, starting companies, raising money in the numbers that men are. Therefore, you have these low numbers. They're not even trying. And then when I pushed back on it, he just went at me, and I'm like, oh no. I said, I know exactly what this is. We're not doing this. And he's like, I just, you should be able to defend this. And I was like, I should, but I'm not going to with you, And I have to say, and I'm going to be really honest with you, I went off on him. I recorded some of it on my phone because he was just way out of line. And I went off. But as soon as I hung up, I cried. Because even after everything I've done, it was just like, what I hated about it was the quietness, the privacy of it. The fact that he's not going to put this on his podcast because he's going to make him look bad, or it doesn't have enough, material. He's going to be able to just go out in the world and just be, right? He's like a bulldozer. He's going to be able to go out and be, but he put this on me. And I forgot to tell you the best part. His father is a hedge fund manager who gave every penny of what this boy has to do what he's doing, which is mostly swindling people online. Let's go to Pemberton's house. Well, y'all ready?
How many Mr. Pembertons are there?
Plenty. There are a lot of young Pembertons, but they're for everyone. And maybe he'll change, Maybe he'll have a black friend one day, and it'll change his whole world or something. But there are far more people who are worth talking to and worth reaching.
Yeah.
And worth turning into millionaires on their own merit.
Let's talk about him. Share with us some, stories. I mean, you have obviously tons of them, but part of the 200 startups that you have invested in and the lives that you have changed and the impact that you are making.
Well, with 200 plus companies, I don't have any favorites. People ask me that. No favorites. So Akash is a good one. Akash, Felix is the founder, CEO. So I met Akash in 2017. We met Silicon Valley at a coffee shop. Within 15 minutes, I knew I was going to invest in him, and I didn't have much money at all in 2017. And I just thought he was a genius. I still think that to this day as we text today. He first, before this company, created himself technology using fake diamonds, like building diamonds, artificial diamonds, that he then sold to De Beers so that they wouldn't have to do as much mining. He's an African founder. It then is now using that same technology in the new company, the IP of it. He has developed, and his team, they have developed a material that is colder than ice. And one of the things it can do is help keep objects in space colder for longer so they can stay in space longer. And I wouldn't even be close to able to explain this to you, but the way he can. Mm-hmm. He's brilliant. We went in, we got one of our LPs who's an investor in the fund. We got them to do the technical diligence for us, because I knew, but I need the technical. He used that technical diligence to then get a lead investment from Khosla, which is the same guy who's invested in OpenAI and is the main, the first investor in OpenAI, and has gone on to raise several $1 million. We were able to then in 2020 come back and invest. I think we invested $25,000. We were able to come back and invest another $500,000 through our syndicate. And when I met him at that table, he told me, with all his brilliance, that he would not put his own picture on his website because he had lost deals when they find out it's a black founder. And today he is on the short list, or they are on the short list, for a $150 million CHIPS Act grant from the government because their technology is so powerful. And they're in the Bay Area. So he's one of those hidden figures, right? So if you think about it, obviously I want to be part of that. Whether it works or doesn't, I want to be part of, involved in that. But then you take that little part of, he deals with all of that, just trying to be the genius he is and be the scientist he is and all of that. But then he has to think about, can I put my own photograph, in my opinion, on my website and still get as much revenue as possible for this company? Or do I have to put someone else in that seat in order to do that? And we all know that. We know what that feels like for the most part, right? So he's one. There's so many. Mommy is a great example. So Mommy, they have a product that helps people, parents, from the time they know they're pregnant through kind of the first year. and met them again. I think that was 2017 as well. And I was able to lead their seed round, even though we had less money than the next person. Came in, helped with that, and then got Mark Cuban to put another large amount in it, and then brought Serena Williams into it because she had her birth, her high risk birth happen recently.
That's right.
And so that kind of did the circulation. And then now they've gone on to raise millions more on top of that. And I think Melissa Hanna is one of those types of founders that are really rare. And then the last one I'll mention is CurlMix. So, and you can see the different types of companies. So SAS, and there's Frontier, and then CurlMix is CPG. So I met them, I'm gonna say again, 2017 was a good year for us. So 2017, I spoke for the first time because I used to have really bad stage fright, and I can't get me to shut up. And I spoke for the very first time with my friend, and we were in San Francisco, and her husband was in the audience, her co-founder. And I sat on a bench with him. He told me what was going on. They were mixing hair products in their kitchen. They had done less than $10,000 in revenue per month. And then he told me something. He told me about Kim, his wife, how great she was. And I said, well, how have you been funded, or how have you kind of gotten this far? And he said, well, we were watching Who Wants to Be a Millionaire one night, and they said they were looking for people to be on the show, and Kim signed me up because I was answering all the questions correctly. He got on the show. He won $250,000.
Whoa.
And they funded their company with that.
Wow.
So when I heard that, when he didn't lead with that, right? When I heard that, I'm like, this is what we're talking about. Like, who has these types of stories falling out of Stanford with their MBA, with their, degrees, and MIT? I just thought it was just such a perfect example. I think, and I'm going to be exact with this, they've done 7 or 8 million this year in the last 12 months.
Wow.
First I was a mentor, and then we put in $25,000. They used $25,000 to hire part-time people to help them package and to get into a shared facility for packaging. They now own their own full-scale warehouse and facility to create. The videos from it are amazing. There's just all this square footage, and they do millions and millions a year. They've also raised millions through the crowd. I was the first Black woman to raise $5 million on the new Reg CF maximum, and they were right behind me, right after me. And they're just, killing it. And so you have these three different people. They don't know each other. I was there by myself. I wasn't with any other fund coming in and clamoring to get in. And then people were like, well, how did you get into CurlMix? They're doing so well. They're almost going to be at 10 million this year. I'm like, yeah, I met them when they were doing less than 10,000. That's how I know them. I say be yourself so the people looking for you can find you. So we were there. We set up shop so they could find us.
Thank you so much for sharing, because I've stayed up every night since I got your book, and then I knew I was going to have this conversation with you, trying to come up with ideas. When am I going to pitch Arlen? Just kidding. No.
Is there going to be music and lights going on? The Shark Tank music starts playing?
Oh, right, yeah.
You're kind of cool, right? If
yeah.
All of a sudden that's dun, dun.
By the way, I'm not going to be the only one asking questions, so if you've got questions for Arlen, I think we have question cards. Oh, we're gonna do mic, open mic.
Yay!
So just raise your hand.
And if you can sing, but well, sing that question.
Yeah. So, okay, we got a question right here in the audience.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Conti from the Impact Seat Foundation. Arlen and I have met. It's actually more of a comment, which is this is really exciting to see a room full of people who are also excited about you. I have had the Pemberton experience, and I have a data point that might be helpful for your next conversation with, the bros. I have been, some of you may know Astia. It's one of the OG female, focused funds out there. They actually did a study. They, have a lot of data, and they did a study on, white female founders versus people of color female founders, and how long does it take to get funders. They found, when they crunched their numbers, that it takes on average 7 introductions to funders to get a white female founder funded. It takes on average 50 introductions to funders to get an equivalent Black woman funded, and she still might not close the round. And when they first told me that, I said, yeah, that tracks. I, really quickly when I was, launching my first company, figured out that it was a numbers game, and I ended up talking to 40 different investors. So I offer that to y'all for the Pembertons.
Yes.
In your,
I love that. I'm going to use that. I think my Pemberton would just say, well, what was her hair like?
Yeah.
But I love it. Receipts help a lot.
The Astia Edge report. You can find it online.
All right.
We have a question all the way on this end. While we get there, just really quick. I mean, you mentioned Shark Tank and then Mark Cuban. Yeah, great story. Mark Cuban isn't a Mr. Pemberton.
No, Mark Cuban is not Mr. Pemberton. No. Mark Cuban invested $6 million into Backstage Capital. The first tranche was in 2019, so it was not performative. And the second tranche was much larger in 2020. And you all see him fighting with Elon, or Elon's, what do you say? It's like it's a battle of wits, but one's not armed. And so it's I have seen it behind the scenes, and I'm not here to be anybody's spokesperson, and they're such a great person. I'm just saying from what I've seen, Mark walks the walk. He truly believes in diversity. He does not say anything he does not want to say. I don't agree with everything he does, but our relationship has been extremely respectful and peer-to-peer. And I can tell you, I think the biggest argument that Elon is making is that it's not merit-based. There are no special favors or anything when it comes to how Mark talks to me about this investment. He wants his money back and he wants a return. He's not calling me up and saying, how are you feeling? You good? How is the DEI work going for you? He's like, where's the annual report? I need it, and we're having this conversation. We go back and forth. I'll show him a company. He'll show me a company. We'll talk about it. So that whole thing is just so off base. And if it weren't, I'd tell you, because I'll talk about people, right? If it weren't, I'd tell you, he's just that. His thing is not, I'm the best person in the world. I want to have all these great friends. And, we do have great culture. But his thing is, mostly black people, except for the Luca guy. Most of these black people are making me richer. And having diversity, women, by the way, his team is very diverse. So he's walking the walk there. Most of the people I know in the Mavericks, because I spend a lot of time with the Mavericks, are not white men who have very important roles. And so his thing is, I want to keep making money. Mm-hmm. And this is how you do it. You let the people who know what they're talking about do their thing. So I don't know, he's something else.
I don't think he's here in San Francisco right now.
I wish he would be. I said 3 years ago, it wasn't that I disliked him at the time. It was just that everybody was talking about him like he was this god. And I was like, I think, and I still think this, I think Elon would make an incredible butler. I think he would be really good at that. That's where it ends for me.
That will be my social media.
And I'm not putting butlers down, by the way. I think I think that would be his calling, because, he gives me that sort of, he would dress the part, and he might, with the hat.
Question from the audience.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure how to continue this conversation. I was actually going to ask.
It's a mixed bag.
Somewhat a serious question, right? But Elon, childhood trauma is a real thing, and I think he is the prime example. But
can I just stop you right there? I know a lot of people who've been traumatized as children, and they don't go around traumatizing others.
That's true.
And throwing their weight around and being the richest person on earth. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's very true. So, and there was a just episode actually on KQED where girls in tech were sharing their perspective and sharing how they came to a competition in Oakland in a very progressive place, and they were fighting for attention, literally, and they said nobody came to their table to look at their technology. So it's very true, and thank you so much for speaking out. More speak out, more attention draws. My question is two-pronged. I'm passionate about sustainability, environmental protection, because we all of this earth, and this is one of the pressing issues. So in your, when you're looking at companies, are you requiring them to include sustainability reporting into their portfolio, into their operations? And also, are you specifically including sustainability as your operation in your company? Thank you so much.
Thank you. No and no. I mean, no and somewhat. Okay. So, no, in that I'm extremely focused on lifting this current mountain and hoping that the other billions of people on Earth who are here will help everyone do their part. Completely understand the question, though. It's not, there's been a lot of that question of, do you have this as a mandate? Do you have this? We don't even have diversity as a mandate on purpose. We want to find people who are doing that already, who that's baked in, or that we can help change their minds. For myself, I would be curious as to what you mean. Just because we're such a small fund, we're just a couple people. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know what sort of footprint we would be leaving, as not the Silicon Valley jumping on their jets to go have a hot tub meeting in Japan. That's a true one. I read a whole article about that.
I don't have a mic.
Okay. Hi.
Hello. Hi. I'm Tirza Love, founder of Soulbox. First of all, shoes are amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
I wanted to know, is there a common thread between the people that you've invested in? Is there like something that they all have that you look for?
Oh, so there's two different questions. It's not that I set out to look for it, but I do find it to be almost everyone. And in mostly the ones that are quote unquote successful, have the most success, this is the case, is that they truly are going after a personal pain point. And you don't always find that in founders. You don't always have to look for that in founders and, talk about it. But I really sat down one day and wanted to find what is that thing? Because everyone always asks me, what are you looking for? What's a good indicator? All of these things, there's few of them. But I looked at it and I'm like, every single person, every face that comes to mind, with 200 companies, it's about 500 founders. And I'm very much so someone people text in the middle of the night and, it's very kind of close. That's the through line, because we are so varied in the types of companies we invest in. It's they are going after a very personal pain point. Like even Felix with his Akash, he wants different places in Africa to be able to have more access to Wi-Fi. So that he wants to, so he's kind of back channeling all the ways to make it possible to get the satellites to be, everywhere all at once, even if it takes him decades to do it. So yeah, that's the biggest thing.
Hi, Arlen.
Hi.
I'm Donovan Kirk from Creator Connect.
Hi.
How much do you normally invest, and how much are you looking to make back, and how soon?
So the normally it varies. It really does vary depending on what year, where we are in life. So we have invested anywhere between $25,000 and $500,000 per. Yeah, let's go. $25,000 to $500,000. Oh, it's louder. Oh. Go off. Let's put it in the mic.
That's pretty
Do a
cool.
little double Dutch. 25,000 to 500,000 has been the general. I really wish we could get it to be more specific, and especially per fund. But the good thing is that it gets higher each time. And we also have done, even though we've invested in 200 companies, we've also done about a third of those have been also follow on. We followed on once, twice, or even 3 times. There's 2 answers to your question about how much we want to make back and how fast. There's the answer that is like what we will do or what we're aiming for, which is like, standard, industry standard, which is that 3x net over the life of a fund, which is 7 to 10 years with a 2-year extension. And then we're we're behind on that with Fund 1, but as we get closer and closer, things get better. But then there's my answer, which is like, I just see so much. I see so many funds internally, and most of the funds, even top tier funds, are not returning 1x. And then there's some funds. I just had a conversation in Philadelphia with Josh Koppelman from First Round, and I've known him for years. He's really low key, but really amazing. He was telling me about a deal he did that was returned hundreds of millions of dollars. It was 8x, and to him it was like, it was like it's good, but we know we can do better. And so it's, if you're talking as a person who wants to invest in Backstage, we are going after kind of industry standards, 3x net over the life of a fund. But if you're talking to me, it's like, I really I don't want this to all have been for nothing, right? I don't want to do all of this just to be as good as the next fund was. At the same time, you could say that a lot of our return has already happened in just the way we've been able to change the ecosystem. So I know you're asking for a more specific answer, but that's just kind of how I think about it. Does that make sense?
I agree with you. I think sometimes having like a mission and a vision, and as a value proposition for how you contribute to society is.
Yeah, I think we're going to do both. Like, I truly do, but it's so funny, like, again, Josh, the conversation I was having, people are really on me about the fact that we're 8 or 9 years in and we don't have these huge exits. And we went through, half of that was COVID and a racial reckoning and all of that. And we were kind of creating dozens of other funds, if you think about what spawned out of that. But again, so Josh is telling me, he was saying something, and he's like, I'm in it for a long time because it takes like, oh, what did he say? He'd been doing this for about 20 years. And he's like, the last 3 years have been the most, has been 80% of the money he's made. And he's like, it's compounding. And Sam Altman wrote that article, blog post 3 or 4 years ago, where he talked about compounding, right? He said at the time he was overseeing Y Combinator. And he said, I want to have a career where each job that I have makes the last one look minuscule in comparison. And you're looking at that and you're like, how can you make being the president of Y Combinator look minuscule? Then he's the president of a CEO of OpenAI. And then you're like, how can you make that look minuscule? Nuclear fusion, right? So I think in my world, if I could go back, and people keep asking me if I could change one thing, and I forget to say this is what I would change. I would go into it and say, my fund life is not like another fund's. It's not 7 to 10 years with a 2-year extension opportunity. My fund life is either evergreen or 20 years. And if we looked at it from that point of view, I'm gonna lap these people. But it's all of this really high pressure right now, when I can see from some of these people who are Midas list people who are like, no, the real deal is those first couple of funds did all right. But this is where I made all of my money. This is where I made the jet money, right?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashley Ford, and I'm in advertising. I am making a transition right now to work on my own projects, and I'm just kind of wondering, when you were transitioning into Backstage Capital, how did you continue to be your own self-sustaining source of motivation and discipline while you were still in pursuit of your goals overall?
Yeah, it was difficult. I think that if it were only going to be about me when I won or got there or made it, if I could look into the future and say, oh, I'm going to make it because I have this house or I have this thing or I'm on this cover, then I would have stopped a long time ago. So what kept me going was this vision, that a true vision, a visual that I could see of rooms like this that just did not exist before. They were very few and far between, if they existed at all. And I just thought, now we have conferences and things like that are like, thousands of people, and they're just all these people in tech that in startup land, and people, if you put our portfolio in the same room, like that room is incredible. So it was like the way that I was able to self-sustain was like doing it for the bigger picture. And I don't want anybody to think that I'm saying I'm doing it only for other people, because you can't do that either. If you do that, then there's resentment that can happen, or there's like this other thing that's like, wait a second, and if you don't have the right traction and people aren't really getting you, it can be something. But if you combine it, it's like, no, I'm doing this for myself and for my legacy, but I'm really, the big picture is what it's about. It's about the people who will benefit from it, because the work that we've done at Backstage has already, every single day of my life, multiple people tell me the work, what has happened from the work. Like that's such a gift. So that will happen, I'm sure, forever. The seeds planted, but you couldn't have known that 10 years ago. So that's what you kind of have to imagine. And even on a smaller scale, you might have heard me say, I call it loosening the pickle jar for somebody else. Even if you're not getting the win in the moment, you may have loosened the pickle jar for the next person who looks like you, or who comes from where you come from, or who doesn't, and is just someone you want your fellow person to win. And so thinking of it like that is how I kept going. Because I've had Pembertons the whole way. I've had all kinds of, in the book I talk about losing $5 million in 2 weeks when this one dude gets arrested, and he was supposed to write a check for $5 million.
Oh, I know this.
Yeah, there's so much has happened, but that's how I do it. And then I don't sail through. I have to remind myself all the time. I really do. Sometimes I get down. Sometimes I get really frustrated. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm just going to have a podcast and bounce.
We're going to talk about those things.
I could truly make a lot more money in the now doing other things. But I believe that I will be incredibly wealthy based on the work that Backstage is doing. I just know that. It's not a question to me. So, yeah, finding that purpose is really the point.
Are you okay sharing that story about the $5 million that it was lost because of that guy?
Yeah, homeboy. So it was 2019 maybe. So I was on the cover of Fast Company in 2018. Thank you. I will never stop talking about that, by the way. Somebody asked me online, when are you going to stop talking about that? And I was like, I don't know. When did you stop talking about your cover? Yeah. So there was no answer, so there will be no answer for me. But this person at this company saw that, and we ended up talking on a panel together, and he was just really impressed and was paying attention to us. And a few weeks of talking and negotiating, his company, it was Nissan Renault, the company, they were going to have this innovation section and give Backstage $5 million to operate, which at the time was just mind-blowing. Not to invest, but to operate, so I could build a team and I could do the things and expand our accelerators and all that. And then that was just the beginning. I can flash back to the San Francisco office we were in, where they were like, this is just the beginning of what we will do. So they wanted it to be something very sustainable that we would do years and years. So this was it. This was the answer. I had already, at this point, Melinda Gates and Lorene Powell Jobs, they had been in diligence with us. I didn't put that in the book, but they ended up passing, and it was the same amount of money. So I was like, this is it. This is great. So we get to the meeting, and it's like my whole team and their whole team, and we're crying, and they're all buttoned up, and they're all these executives, but they're crying, and we're crying, and it's this, we're going to save the world together. And then the last steps of it were that this homeboy, what's his name, Charles or
Ghost?
I tend to block people out a little bit. That's why I can't remember Pemberton's real name. The last part was he's in France, he's in Japan, and he's in the U.S., and so he's everywhere. He is the man, and so he has to come to San Francisco. I have to do a photo op with him. We sign papers, as he's like doing this whirlwind tour, and this is going to be in 2 weeks, and then it's done. I fly to New York for something, and a couple of weeks later, like, you know, days before I'm supposed to fly back, I wake up, still can see it in my mind's eye. I wake up and I'm just checking Twitter when it was normal, just normal trash, you know, dumpster fire, just a regular dumpster fire. And I'm checking it, and I'm looking at the trending things. And number 3 trending was this guy's name, Carlos Ghosn. And he was trending because he was being sought out for, he had been arrested because of all sorts of things, mishandling of money and all. He was the CEO, president, main guy of this conglomerate, multi-billion-dollar conglomerate, and he had been arrested. And so I called the guy, the original guy, and I was like, hey, so we're still good? We're good, right? And he just he sounded like he was just staring into the abyss. And he's like, you know as much as I do, we have some things we have to work out. So, you know, I obviously understood he had bigger problems. We hung up. I've never spoken to him again. He's never talked to me again. I've never heard from that group again, ever. It just evaporated overnight. This same person, if you don't know the story, is now on the run because he shipped himself in a, FedEx or something box.
It's like a box, yeah.
He shipped himself in a box to a country where he can't get arrested. He's a criminal for that. Yeah, I don't know what he did with the money, but, you know, I know that, yeah, I mean, I know what he did, but I can't say that he did it, you know, if he's guilty, but the running away part was a little much.
In a box.
He shipped himself. I'm waiting for the movie, the Hulu.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually would watch that. I would watch it in tears. I would be like crying, laughing, because it'd be like so. But I'll tell you what I did when I heard that, and like after I had the phone call, because I knew he was not ready to talk to me, but I was like, we're good, right? After that, we needed that money so bad. And we went through so much after not having that money. But I just did the same thing I did in the hotel in Austin 2 days before 2 days into my entire speaking career being gone, all the 6 figures being gone because of COVID. I just laughed. And I was like, this is crazy. I should feel something different. And I think it's just all that experience of being on the other side of it, of like the ridiculousness of sleeping at the airport and going to Silicon Valley for meetings about $1 million funds. The other conversations I'd had, again, I'll shout out Melinda Gates and Laurene Powell Jobs. I still think they made a mistake. Like that whole situation was kind of crazy. Just back to back, and I'm like, this is funny. It's so wild. This dude, you know, and so Nissan, if you want to holler at me, I'll still take it. We'll do something different with it, but I'll still take it.
You live to tell it in a book, though. That's great.
I guess so. I mean, I mean, who here? Like, how would you all have reacted if you lost $5 million, like in a tweet?
I think we got a couple more questions from the audience.
Yes, thank you very much, Arlen, for being here and for all the different questions. And I was about to give away the mic because I'm actually a French citizen, a Black French citizen, as you can tell, and I don't work for Nissan or Renault.
Yeah,
so sorry about the story.
You good?
So actually, my name is Christelle Mamboziga, and I work in tech. I'm a full-time employee, so not yet. I haven't found yet the pain points that I'm going to pitch to you in a few years to join potentially Backstage Capital. So in the meantime, what advice would you give to aspiring angel investors, obviously from underrepresented minorities, who wants to actually start investing in startups?
Yeah, I love angel investors. I really enjoy them more than VCs. I think we need millions and millions of them. I became a VC so I could become an angel investor, essentially, because I didn't have my own money, so I wanted to make money to then become an angel investor. So I really am bullish on that. But I will say to you what I would say to like most entrepreneurs, and that maybe you can say this to, I mean, maybe you can think about this for your portfolio, is like after 10 years of working on this, and even though I'll work on it for another, however many decades, I've finally figured out that no one's coming to save us. And I have that message to give to everybody else. And what that means is I spend the majority of my time today talking to entrepreneurs about generating revenue, making their customers their investor, rather than there's a lot of founders in here like, oh, what's she about to say? But we cannot be counting on investors, including me. Like we see 1,000 companies a year plus, and we can invest in maybe 10 or 20 of them, maybe even if that, and we invest small amounts. And then we have other emerging managers, but they're having a really tough time. I just met with an LP whisperer, someone who has raised $1 billion in the last decade, and she was saying it was tough out there. It's tough. And then she was saying that her LPs were saying the next 2 years are going to be really tough for venture because it's not performed well. So now everybody's holding back. And maybe it'll get picked back up in a couple of years. So if you have all of that and you have this such long tail of like getting things off the ground, I would say, I don't know what your source of income or source of money will be to be an angel investor, but this is why I wrote this book. I want to help create 1,000 new millionaires over the next decade. And if I can help you, and you may already be one, but if I can help you become a millionaire or even just generate your first million and get you on the path, then you can do whatever you want with that money. And that it'll be more about like, us all getting together as a group and working on projects and investing in each other and doing all of that. I can't in good conscience say that, is it conscious or conscience? Conscience? I can't in good conscience say that it's just about taking this same path that I took, right? And let me just help create all these angel investors. Because it's a broken system. It really is. The beauty of it, though, is that whatever your expertise is, whatever your experience is, you can give that. So you know what it's like to help somebody. Okay, here's the first 10,000 to get you going. Here's that, or you've already have traction. Let me put in more so I can have a better chance of ROI. And at the same time, I'm going to give you some of my wisdom and some of all that mentorship, because that's what is the beauty of being an angel investor to me, truly. And VCs, most of them, unless they started the fund, and sometimes even if they did, they're going to bounce around just like any other job. So it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit different. But I just encourage everybody in this room to think about just having that autonomy and that ownership of not just generating revenue, but ownership. And that's another reason to be an angel investor, is to have ownership. We need that, obviously. I just think it's going to look different than this current system.
Hi, Arlen. Rachel Boldhue. Hi, happy to be here. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be here.
Wow.
Hi.
Speaking of angel investors, if anybody is an angel investor or a VC, y'all listen to this girl. She's about to make me very wealthy. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just fortunate to be here. I'm so happy to have you be a part of my company. So Arlen's been amazing for me, but it's fascinating as a full circle. And I wanted to ask you if you ever had kind of a similar aha moment. And I think I told you when we first met, very much resonated as a female founder going out trying to raise capital. And as a 2-time entrepreneur, my first product company I never had to raise capital. So I was kind of learning this, wild, wild west sort of language. And after my 30th meeting and the 30th door slammed in my face, I just kind of melted and just like, maybe I just don't have it. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. And I can't remember if it was in your first book or if it was a post or something, but the connection that like just gravitated of like, this is a person that understands me, was the no's are just math. Mm-hmm. And it was just so short, right? But it was the energy to keep going. And I needed that in that specific moment. So I just wanted to know, just, for the crowd, right, of everyone kind of has a story or maybe an aha moment in the early days. If you had kind of that click moment of when you were down and it just gave you the energy to get up.
I mean, just talking about what you're referring to, it was from the first book about the math game. Yeah. So there's so many different times in my life, different careers. Will you hold the mic for a second? Because I want you to talk about your company for a second. There's so many times in my life where I got certain opportunities because I would just play this over-the-top math game that most people just wouldn't do. So I got into, before I was a VC, I was a production coordinator and a tour manager. It had been my dream since I was 13, and I saw Janet Jackson live. And the way I got those gigs was, one of them was I emailed over 2 months, customized emails after searching for them and finding them because I couldn't afford the industry indexes. So I just found them online. 100 production managers and tour managers, very customized. From that, I got 20 responses, 3 in-person interviews, and 1 gig that kicked off my career. And that I ended up working on arena level shows across the world, and then stadium level. And I did the same thing in other ways too that kind of do that. So it's always been this, I will talk to more people than you will. Not you, but I will talk to more people than the next person will. I will take more no's than any reasonable person will do, because I know that to me it's just logical that it's a numbers game, it's a percentage game. And so no matter what you believe about what I say individually about answers about certain things, whatever you want to do, that is a big part of the power that you have, is what you're willing, the risk you're willing to take on the rejection. If you're willing to take a lot of rejection, you're going to make something happen. Mm-hmm. Because most people stop as soon as it gets painful. And you should, by the way. If you're exercising, if you're doing anything, stop. But it's that discomfort of, I don't want to hear somebody say no to me. I don't want to hear this for the 30th time. The 31st time somebody said yes to you. And then please tell the audience what your company does.
So we have a beauty tech company. Our company is called Bold Hue. And my co-founder, Karen, and I have been working on it we're going into our 5th year. And so we call ourselves the Keurig for makeup consumers. And the reason we say that is because just like Keurig is an at-home device that gives you instant coffee on demand, we are an at-home device that will give you perfectly matched foundation on demand through our patented proprietary skin typing algorithm. So not an easy project.
And what it does, it uses AI, uses a wand, it presses against your skin, and then it gives you a perfect match to that. And I mean I've seen video across every skin tone imaginable. People kind of losing their minds when it happens for them in person. And what I loved about our conversation we had for our syndicate was that some people are like, most of us, we're not the same color every day because of the sun or because of this or that. You can have customized color for you that day because this is an in-home device. Mm. Yeah, so what you're thinking it is, when you're saying, no, that's impossible, I don't think I understand her, that's what it is.
Yeah, actually, she's right.
Yeah, so later this year, there should be a pre-order. And so pay attention.
Oh, thank you. My wife's on it. Any others? We got about 7 minutes left.
Hi, thank you so much for being here tonight. You mentioned that you were in a very different career before this. And what advice would you give to your younger self, right? That obviously took some buildup of courage to jump into venture capital. Maybe some people in this room, and within the next 10 years, will do the same jump or become a founder, start their own company, start their own VC firm. What advice would you give to your younger self that could be applicable?
It's not necessarily advice to my younger self, because I think I did have the courage and the confidence to make the jump. Again, a little bit delusional, but it worked out. But I will say that, like, if I could go back and talk to her today, like in some sort of Back to the Future situation, which would be awesome, by the way, I would say, You're cuter than you think you are, first of all. And you're going to meet a really cute German girl who's going to change your life. But I would say that it's going to take longer than you thought it would. It's going to be more difficult than you ever imagined, but it's going to be more worth it than you could have ever dreamed.
Great.
Thank you.
Hello, Stephanie Hilborn, former diplomat and social impact founder.
Cool.
I have a question on social impact. I was recently told by a VC woman that she likes sociopath founders because she doesn't care about social impact and she wants someone to just fully go for it.
Did you say sociopath?
Oh, yes, I did.
Okay.
Sociopath. Okay. Woman founder at an event 2 nights ago, and I'm like, sociopath's great, awesome. I'm really for social impact.
Pemberton.
Yes, at Pemberton.
We should introduce them.
And I have a crazy dream to bring coaches in Rwanda and post-conflict countries to be mental health coaches for privileged kids like Pembertons in the U.S. and Europe. And so I'm curious about social impact. Yes, totally. So for social impact, what does your fund say about social impact, or what would you say about inspiring words for someone who is trying to break through on true social impact, not just lip service?
Yeah, I mean, I just hope that the last decade of my life has been an example of the social impact that I've wanted to make in the world. Yeah, thank you. When I started, people were not talking about gender, race, orientation. I was, in fact, told in an email when I asked for help. I'll say his name, Jason Calacanis. I asked him for help. I've never said that, but it's Jason Calacanis. I asked him for help finding a lawyer who would work with me for free until I could make something happen. And he wrote me back and he said, "We don't talk about gender, race, or orientation around here. You should not lead with that." And he went on to say some other stupid stuff in his life that I've called him out on, and then we became buddies, and then he got real stupid again. But that's that was the landscape that we were starting in. So it was even, I think it was worse now. It's not the oppression Olympics, but I think it was worse at that point. I think we've gotten better. We certainly have evidence of this room. But I don't know if I have a lot of advice. I just think it's just in my work. It's just in the 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for the past decade plus of just doing this when all the odds were against us and persevering through that. And the reason I do it is so that founders like yourself have a chance to change the world, have a chance in this world.
Got one more question, and I get the last question, by the way.
Okay, great.
Hello, Arlen. I want to say congratulations for the book tour. I am on the book team.
Yay!
And looking forward to April. Right?
Yeah, April.
Yes, the conference.
We'll talk about that.
My name is Keisha Mitchell. I'm a founder of Elevate Your Now, success coach for women trying to move from employee to entrepreneur. I would love to know, you have said multiple times, I knew. Or I knew it was coming, I knew it was off, it was just a matter of time. Was that because of the numbers, or was it because of something else that you got the confidence? And is that something that you believe helps people align to millions?
Yeah, so it's hard to describe. It's gonna make me sound a little strange to some people, but other people are totally gonna get what I'm talking about. I just truly, I was staying at the time when I had all these epiphanies at a Comfort Inn in Pearland, Texas, sharing a room with my mom. We would be excited if it were Tuesday or Wednesday because that's when they had free chili dinner, and we knew we'd eat that day. That's what we were operating with. At the same time, I was out trying to raise by email, because I couldn't go anywhere, a $1 million fund at the time. And I just had no doubt that I would. It felt like it was inevitable, because look at all these founders. If I'm raising a fund for these founders, and these founders exist already, I didn't create them. I didn't even discover them. They're there. So me, it was like, this is inevitable. It's supposed to exist. It has to exist. And I did this, and some of you may know this from the first book, but I was in that same hotel, I was in that parking lot, and I was really weighing, like, what do I do? I don't know what to do next, but I just know I need to do something. So I said, am I crazy? Do I need to like focus on something else? So I told myself, and I don't know where this came from, and I told myself, I said, close your eyes, imagine the world in 5 years, and imagine that Backstage Capital does not exist. Can you live with that? So I closed my eyes in that parking lot next to a gentleman who was in a pickup truck with a beer like keg that came out of the pickup bed, who had asked me several times to stop by his little party. Full mullet, exactly what you're imagining, by the pool, the gated pool. And I closed my eyes and I imagined the world at that time. This is 2014. I imagined the world in 2020. And it didn't exist. Eyes open, shot open. And I said, no, that doesn't work for me. It has to exist, and it has to exist whether I do it or not. It has to exist. And that from that day on, I was like, we're doing this. And I say that I think, and again, this is, I'm not trying to like use buzzwords. It's truly how I feel. This was the first time I felt called to do it, rather than it was a dream of mine. And so that pull was like always going to take me somewhere. That's how I felt about it. Everything else I had chased. This one I was just being like pulled to. And so that's why also, even though all of this is so wacky to me, it's like, oh my goodness, across the world, people are like loving what I do, and like every day new people. It also is like, oh, this message was supposed to always be there. So like, okay, that's why I'm here. That's why I got to stay here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I was monitoring the online chats as well. Everybody's just so stoked for you, stoked for this conversation.
Thank you, online people.
So get your copy if you don't have it for your first million. Arlen's going to be signing books. I got to let you go to go do that. I wanted to ask just, a couple more questions. Very quick, you mentioned the tour, the podcast and all that. It's all interconnected. It's also a way that you diversify income streams to get to that million.
Yeah. So we want, this is about more investors to invest alongside us in these companies, creating those investors like angel investors. This is about the founders themselves not having to wait for somebody to come in and invest in them. It's about, I want to help create 1,000 new millionaires who represent the country. So we have the Your First Million brand across several things. So the book, I've had Your First Million podcast for 4.5 years. So check out the podcast if you haven't before. Really great interviews and takeaways. Then we have the video version, which was a lot of really great interviews that started last year. And now we're putting out a lot more content. You'll see that we're documenting what we're doing here. We've already put out some episodes. We have some great ones coming out. And then we have Your First Million Live, April 9th through the 12th in Los Angeles. This is my first full-scale, large-scale event. It's happening at LA Live, which is where a lot of things happen, but one of our venues is where the Emmys are held at the Peacock Theater. It used to be the Microsoft Theater. So we are going to be there, 4,000 people, entrepreneurs, investors, career professionals, all coming together. A lot of experiential things. We have some great sponsors that are in that we're going to announce soon, Fortune 500s. We also have a lot of our speakers we were able to announce in December. I'll give you a few of them if you haven't heard about it. If anybody's already going and knows about it, you shout out your favorite speaker that you know about. Issa, yeah. So Issa Rae will be in the building. We just announced her this week. And what I love about Issa is that we're going to have an evening with Issa. So on April 10th, we will have an evening with her at the Peacock Theater. It'll be her night. Very intimate, even though it's a large crowd. And the way the theater is made is the seats go up, right? So every seat is a good seat. And then the next day, we'll have, from morning till evening, we'll have a full event. We have Sheila Johnson, the first Black woman billionaire, Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, and Adele's husband. Not a big deal. We have Gary Vaynerchuk will be there, a good friend. We have so many other people. Dean Forbes is coming from the UK. You're going to love his story. Many other people, Sunira Madani. And then we have TLC.
What?
TLC is performing, like the TLC, the real TLC.
Left Eye and everything?
No, not Left Eye.
No.
We're not Left Eye.
What are you talking about?
Left Eye has passed away. You know that?
I know.
But that type of, Left Eye will not be there. Yeah. She will be there in spirit, though, because I have actually seen them.
They do George Michael in hologram now.
No, it's no hologram, but I have seen them live at the Hollywood Bowl, and it's so great when they finish. I'll give a little spoiler alert. At the end of the concert, they have the DJ, and this DJ says, "Give it up for Left Eye," because she is so embedded into their music. Yeah. So it will be the full concert that they do in arenas. They're doing at the Peacock Theater for us to close out the event. Has anybody ever seen the episode of Fresh Prince where Will and Carlton dance to Belle Biv DeVoe? I think it's on there. I'm gonna be real cool. And then when certain songs hit, you're gonna see me just kind of shuffling back. Very excited about that. We have some really, really incredible things in this first year. I didn't want to play small ball in the first year. I really wanted to put us on the map. And the whole idea is every year, so again, the 1,000 Millionaires, every year, if we have helped you make your first million, you will walk the stage. And we will track that as well. So over the decade, it's a decades-long series. We want to be able to say and show and convene, and everyone on stage will be a millionaire or a billionaire.
Wow. Well, let's go.
Yeah. So go to. Thank you. Go to yourfirstmillion.live. Yourfirstmillion.live. You can go there right now if you want to. Go ahead. We'll wait. And I'm going to give y'all a deep discount if you type in LIVE, L-I-V-E, into any of the passes. You'll get a deep discount. So just take a note for that. Do that before that goes away. And you can also use ISA, but other people are using ISA right now. But LIVE is yours. LIVE is yours.
Arlen, thank you so much for being here and coming back
to
the Commonwealth Club World Affairs of California. Thank you for this book. Let's go do some book signing.
I would love to do some book signing. Let's do it. Thank you.